I am John Nottingham, and many years ago I became a district officer in Nyeri district in Kenya in 1952, just when the state of emergency was being declared there, had been declared, and I was pitched into this full tilt with very little previous briefing or knowledge about what was going on. And to begin with, I tended to rather obey orders and do this and that I was instructed they wanted to be done, and so forth. I grew increasingly unhappy with the way that I seemed to be expected to shoot people instead of looking after their agriculture and other more important development matters. And I think the last straw was when I was suddenly told that I was going to be posted from the glories of Nandi district and the beauties of Nandi district to take over the Mwea camps.
What were these camps?
They were a series of 5 detention camps in the Mwea area of Kenya, which is an area which was being developed for growing rice. And so a lot of irrigation channels were going to be put in, and a lot of handwork was required, and these detainees seemed to be the answer to a sort of divine will that they'd been suddenly provided to do this rather terrifying job.
Who were these detainees?
They were people who had been suspected of being involved in something called by the British the Mau Mau. And it was in fact largely a political movement which was aimed at seeking self-government and then independence for Kenya.
So you, as a young colonial officer, were asked to take over the Mwea camps, and you said that was the last straw for you. Why?
Well, I'd heard a bit about these camps before, and they seemed to me to be conducting, as I said, torture and other elements of cruelty in order to persuade the detainees, caged as they were behind barbed wire, to admit that they'd taken an oath, whether they were prepared to, whether they had ever taken it or not.
This is the so-called oath of loyalty to Mau Mau.
Yes, well, even the first oath of loyalty, or as one of the people with whom I'm here in London right now, someone who had never taken an oath in his life.
John, what are you doing here with these gentlemen who used to be in the camps?
Well, for many years now, it seemed to me that it's important that we should not allow all the lies about what these people were and what they were fighting for to continue to be part of the general perspective of the world on Kenya. And increasingly I got to know more and more about what had been happening in these camps as time went on. And there was no doubt at all that there was a really massive amount of hiding from the British people and the rest of the world just what kind of things were going on. Looking back, I think it seems to me that it was pretty essential that we try and get this out in the open, so that people could see who were the characters that had actually been behind it. Why was it so important that it should be sort of kept under in the dark, and why, well, just why weren't we being open about what had happened and clearing things up between Britain and Kenya, free Kenya, and getting on with the rest of our life together instead of sort of having to do things in a rather deceitful and underhand manner. There's been a chance to look at the archives, both in Kenya and in London, And here we have some massive evidence, in fact, quite incontrovertible, that these decisions were taken at a very high level in the British government. And the British government was doing this about 7 years after the end of the Second World War, when it had just signed some compelling human rights agreements. And we had to face facts. We were just damned hypocrites, you know. Every time you went to some human rights convention or something, you pretended that you were right behind it and doing, you know, how awful it was that other countries were doing these things. And yet there we were. We had been doing it.
What do you hope to gain by going to the High Court here in London?
Well, in one word, we hope that we can gain justice. And secondly, we would expect, as a result of obtaining that justice, that there would be an apology from the British government of today for what was done during that time to so many of these old men who are living out the last few years of their lives in an attempt to make them as the least possible painful. The people that have come with us, 2 of them were castrated in the course of being in detention camps.
Castrated by whom?
Those 2 were, both of them, castrated by a Kenya Police Reserve officer who worked in Machakos district.
This officer who worked for the police, did he? Yes. No.
Yes.
He was in the employ of the British on the British side.
Yes.
And you're telling me that, and you're telling the world that he castrated prisoners. Is that what he did?
Yes, he castrated prisoners. And
how? The knife?
Well, do you want me to describe? There was a thing called a badiza, which is used in cattle to castrate bulls. I don't know what its proper name is, but everywhere in Kenya it's called a badiza.
And he used this implement on men?
He used this implement on men, and he was actually quite well known for doing it.
More than 2 then?
Oh yes, we've just brought 2 because we have to limit the number of people.
What does this mean to the men that are coming here? I mean, what on earth does this mean, coming to England, to the home of their enemy, really, to ask them for an apology?
I think they've gained a lot of confidence by taking part in this and being part of something which they now feel can be done about the past, to clean it up and to create a situation where British people and Kenyans can talk together again without this thing always being at the back of their minds.
What do you think of the arguments that there was equivalence of barbarity on both sides?
I think these are largely cultural arguments, and the number of European settlers that were killed was 30.
30?
30. 30. The number of Kikuyu and who died as a result of the operations organised against them was, on the official estimate, 11,000. The unofficial estimate puts it up way above 50,000. And this was just, as has appeared in various court cases, was just sheer getting the Bren gun out and just shooting whoever's within range.